Hello, namaste, and welcome to the second video on the topic of permutation systems. I have to go back to a few topics of the first talk, otherwise it becomes maybe a bit too complicated. So in the first video, I discussed the general background of permutation systems, the linguistic tools used by Kabbalists to deepen their interaction with the so-called source texts in Hebrew and Aramaic. So I drew the parallel there with other patterns of creation, since to Kabbalists, this is what permutations are all about. They express the patterns of existence that explain more about the fabric of existence. So the first permutation system I introduced in the first talk was the Advaitic system, the system that exemplifies the existential patterns, reflecting how the end of things and creation in general is embedded in the beginning and vice versa. So this particular phrase, of course, comes from Sefer Yetzirah, one of the oldest Kabbalistic texts. And that's Sefer Yetzirah. Beautiful book. Sefer Yetzirah, the book of formation, that's the literal translation, not the book of creation, opens with the phrase, with 32 wonderful or hidden or mystical paths of wisdom engraved, and then there comes a whole string of divine names, etc. So I mentioned this quote because of the number 32. So with 32 wonderful mystical paths of wisdom. This number, namely, does not only reflect the 10 Sephirot, or the 10 divine emanations, or the 10 primordial numbers, which really is what it's all about. And on top of that, the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet, together 32, in itself touching deeply on the topic of existential patterns. It also refers to the first and last letters of the 5 books of Moses. So Genesis opens with the letter Bet, which has the numerical value 2, and Deuteronomy ends with the letter Lamed, which has the numerical value 32. So these two letters together, the Lamed and the Bet, apart from forming or adding up to the number 32, also form the Hebrew word for heart, lev. So as such, to Kabbalists, the Torah itself is the heart of existence. It's 32 paths of wisdom, having created, or more correctly, according to Sefer Yetzirah, having engraved the world. So this then is a pattern that is the foundation of all patterns to these linguistic mystics. So after just mentioning that in the Advaitic system, the name of names, the ineffable name, the tetragrammaton, the 4-lettered name, permutes 2 letters with the total numerical value 300, I in the first video touched upon the systems, the name of which has meaning. So I mentioned the Elbam and the Abba systems as examples, systems that respectively express or amplify the divine nature of things and how the unmoved mover, the father of all things, moved behind the screens of creation. So I would now like to do some permutation by means of these systems, hopefully systems, maybe just a system, that will reveal some of their dynamics. So to begin with the Elbam system, let us first look at some of its pairs, since the importance of this system is based on the meaning of its first 2 pairs. So remember that in permutation systems, graphically, 2 rows containing all the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet are written opposing one another. So although the majority of systems used by Kabbalists consists of 2 rows that run in opposite direction, the Elbam system belongs to the group in which the rows run in the same direction, so albeit beginning with a different letter. So the direction in which these rows run relative to one another has a very deep meaning as well, related to the difference between looking at things from an emanational point of view or from the point of view from the mystic who is returning to the first Sephirah. This difference again is related to the secret of the number 9 in its relation to the first Sephirah Keter. That again is linked to the secret of the inverted reflection of the Godhead, something which explains how one can actually become 2 in the setting of a God in which everything is one. But I'm now digressing. So to return to the Elbam system, the first pair of the Elbam system consists of the Aleph and the Lamed, as I said in the first video as well. So these 2 letters together form the divine name El. And in the scheme of divine names and Sephirot, every Sephirah has a divine name affiliated with it. This name belongs to the 4th Sephirah, called Chesed, which is loving kindness, usually translated as mercy into English. As such, creation, or the first 42 letters that form its foundation, function on the totem of chesed, of mercy. And to prove this, Kabbalists often point to Proverbs 20:28, where it's written, "His throne is upheld by mercy." So as such, the album system is also connected to mercy. So the second pair of the album system is the second pair of the name of this system, so Bam. So the Beit and the letters Beit and Mem. Together, these two letters express in them, it means in them in Hebrew, Bam, implying that the system reflects how God, El, the first pair of the system, is active in the words permuted by it. So God is in them, in the outcomes of these permutation systems, and hence giving us a deeper understanding of how the divine works in these specific words. So secondly, the first two pairs also express the fact that God, or in this case El, divine name El, resides in the number 42 itself, which is a bit of a different topic, but very important too. So this, after all, is the numerical value of the second pair. So the letters Beit and Mem together have the value 42. So God is in them, in the outcomes of these permutation systems, as a topic of meditation, and God is also in the number 42, of course, again referring to the first 42 letters of the source text of all source texts, the Hebrew Torah. So of course this implication makes this particular system of paramount importance to Kabbalists. An interesting example maybe involves the esoteric poem Yedid Nefesh, Beloved of the Soul, 16th century, better known under the phrase Ana Elna Rafenala, denoting the healing powers of the specific Kabbalistic poem. So I'm mentioning this poem because the name used in this plea for healing is El, again the first of the El-Bam system. So some Kabbalistic commentaries on this poem, they use permutation systems to reveal its connection with the 42-lettered name, which is very interesting. And the system most prevalent in this exercise, this Kabbalistic exercise and commentaries, is the El-Bam system. So here the pattern of creation is emphasized, that is emphasized is more intricate. The connection between the first 42 letters of Genesis, so to the Kabbalist, not only the beginning of the story of creation, but more to the point, the first 42 elements, almost chemical elements by which all of creation is made, is linked to the divine name El, in itself linked to the Sephira Chesed, mercy, and now the implicated powers of mercy are also healing. So that's an expression of mercy. So all of these similarities and links to Kabbalists are patterns to them. These outcomes show patterns of creation with which they can deepen their understanding of creation. So the third pair of the El-Bam system consists of the letters Gimel, which is the third letter of the Hebrew alphabet, and the Nun. So that's the letter, of course, after the Mem then. These two letters together form the word Gan, in Hebrew meaning garden, particularly used in connection with the Garden of Eden. So the third pair also expresses a deep spiritual divine concept, aligning with the intent of the El-Bam system, as I pointed it out, the divine behind the things that are permuted by it. Now, it's not my intention to go through all the pairs of this fascinating system, even though that would be very interesting. But let me just point out that the sixth letter of the alphabet, the Vav, the Hebrew alphabet, is paired with the Pe, the next letter in that order. Although this does not form a divine word per se, like the first three words that I discussed, these two letters are often used to indicate the divine name Elohim, which is the name used for God in the creational processes at the beginning of Genesis. So where it says Bereshit bara Elohim, in the beginning God created, Elohim is the God that created. It's a creator God. So it's interesting that in this particular system, these two letters are also joined together, making for the numerical value of the divine name Elohim. Another similar occurrence is the pair Yud and Shin, used in every religious text to indicate the standard phrase, the name, let him be blessed, which is an acronym in this case. So thus we see that even the pairs of the El-Bam system, without using them to permute, already subscribe to its divine status as it's recognized by the Kabbalists. Now let me now show how this system also expresses divinity when used to permute the words, maybe a bit more interesting. So since my last series of talks was about Metatron and the angel Metatron and his relationship to Shiva, Let us permute the name Metatron, because we've gotten a bit familiar with that, and see what the album system can tell us about Metatron's divine status. Now, the name Metatron in Hebrew is spelled with the letters Mem, Tet, Tet, Resh, Vav, and Nun. So I said in my talks about this subject, the numerical values of these letters are 40, 99, 206, and 50, together amounting to 314. So their album equivalents, so when permuted by, exchanged by the letters in the other row of the permutation system. So the album equivalents of these letters are the Beit, the Resh, the Tet, the Pe, and the Gimel. So the numerical values of these permuted letters are the 2, the 200, the 200 again, the 9, the 80, and the 3. So together these amount to the number 494. So now, of course, this number can spell many different words and even sentences. Yes, but for those who have watched my talks on the subject, one number will stand out immediately. In my talks about Metatron and Shiva, I explained that according to Kabbalistic texts, Metatron, the angel Metatron, is affiliated with one particular sephira, and that's the sephira Da'at, which is knowledge. Now, Da'at is not part of the traditional 10 sephirot, the 10 divine emanations, but it's a hidden sephira, usually placed in between Chokhmah and Bina, the second and the third sephirot, respectively wisdom and understanding. Now, Da'at, knowledge, is 474. So when we compare that to the number 494, we see that the extra value, or the difference between these two numbers, is 20. Now, the extra 20 is the numerical value of the letter Chaf, which in Hebrew is used to express the word like. So this is like that. So hence, the album system tells us, when permuting the word Metatron according to its according to the system, we find that Metatron's divinity is related to his being like the divine emanation Dat. So this is an example of how, when permuting a word by means of a specific system, the word itself, or the outcome itself, will express how the intention of this system works. So in this case, we saw that the album system expresses the divine nature of things, and we found that the outcome expresses Metatron's divinity as being likened to the emanation Dat. And remember that Dat is not just an emanation, it's a divine emanation, so it is divinity. I think I'll have to talk here because my next step will take me over the limit of 50 minutes that I have. Even though I wanted also maybe to do some permutations by means of the Abba system. So the Abba system based on the letters Aleph and Beit, and then returning from Beit to Aleph, expressing the father, but more not the father as a patriarchal symbol, but the father just because that's what the two letters Aleph and Beit mean in Hebrew. It translates as father. It doesn't have any other meanings as such. In this case, mostly according to medieval text, the father is the unmoved mover. So the unmoved mover as in that which moves everything, but itself will not be moved by it. Many similarities can be drawn to other religious texts in which the same symbols are being used. After that, so after you doing a few permutations by means of the Abba system, I would like to continue to a completely different kind of permutation systems, namely the ones in which the pairs amount to a specific number. So the number of the first letter of the permutation system added to the second will have a specific number. And in the Merkabah text, some of these permutation systems even had divine names. So they were seen as so important that they were not just systems, but divinities themselves. So, for example, the Asbo system and the Atbach systems respectively, in which all the pairs add up to 8, or most of the pairs add up to the number 8, or to the number 10. Of course, the number 10 important again because of the first 10 primary numbers. But that's all for the next talk. Thank you for your interest, and I hope you enjoyed it as well. Thank you. Bye.